Alright, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about a lens that I have used for years now. I've had it with me in my kit for about 3 years, done a ton of work with it, been on a ton of jobs. I can attest to the reliability, the sharpness, the autofocus, everything that is right and wrong with this lens, so we'll talk about it now. Alright, so judging by the title, you can probably tell this lens is the 28-70 3.5 to 5.6 from Sony. This is probably their cheapest budget option in terms of a zoom lens for the Sony full frame line. And I know I said in one of my earlier videos that this lens wasn't all that great, but I'm here to redeem it because I've changed my mind. Now I know what you're thinking, how could you change your mind when you've used the lens for so long? It has come to my attention recently, and I have known this for a while, but I've been using a really terrible ND filter with this lens while I've had it on the FX3, and I was like, why do none of my images look sharp? Even if it's focused on a subject all the time, it looks kind of, the faces aren't quite clear, you can't quite see the details in the face, the wrinkles and stuff. And it is on account that I was running it with a terrible ND filter on the front. The Fotga Slim Wide brand fader ND filter. A really terrible quality ND filter, a really cheap piece of garbage, a terrible piece of glass to put on the front of your lens. Buy an expensive ND filter. It is worth your money. It will change the way that your camera records images. It will change the sharpness of your lens. So yeah, changed my mind about this lens. This lens is actually pretty great in terms of autofocus. Alright, future Aiden here. So as you can see, it works pretty well for the most part. I know this wasn't the most extreme test of all time, but from what I can see, it pretty much tracks me all the way through every shot at every focal length, and it does a really good job all around. This lens has really reliable autofocus for the most part, and you can trust it in most situations. The only thing I can say is not great about it is the build quality. The rubber rings on the outside of the lens get quite dirty with any liquid you spill on it, which sounds really weird, I know, but any sweat or raindrops or anything else that gets on it, any dust mixed in with that liquid, will really stain the rubber rings on the outside of the lens, and it's kind of hard to get them off. There are a few videos on how to resolve this. I haven't tried them myself, but yeah. So as you can see from the images on the screen right now, this was all taken with this lens. Every video, basically 95% of the videos that I've shot in the past 3 years have been shot with this lens. It was the first Sony full frame lens that I ever bought. I bought it used in Australia for, I think it was like, I don't know, bro, the equivalent to about $150 US. And it has been with me for 3 years, still works perfectly. The autofocus is pretty great. It's basically on par with the Tamron G2 that I have on my FX3 right now. Yeah, it's really light. You can put it on any gimbal you could possibly imagine, and you can pick them up for incredibly cheap prices. Even new, they're like right around 400 bucks or something like that. So it's one of Sony's only options for a budget full-frame zoom lens. And I know the 3.5 to 5.6 kind of scares some people away, but it's really not that bad, especially if you have something like the FX3 or any of the newer Sony Alpha line cameras that have incredibly high ISO capabilities. You'll be just fine. You just won't get that incredibly shallow depth of field behind your subjects that everyone loves so much. But for me, it worked perfectly for a great number of years that I was beginning out my journey as a cinematographer. It really helped me in those times where I needed a zoom lens and couldn't afford the G Master, couldn't afford the Sigmas, couldn't afford the newer Tamrons. So yeah, it's just a great lens if you are looking to get into the Sony full frame line. Paired with a good camera, this lens will take you very far, honestly, as far as I'm concerned. You will not need another lens when you have this one for a while, especially if you're just beginning, just looking to get some clients through the door. This will get the job done. I have done hundreds of shoots with this lens over the course of 3 or almost 4 years now. I shot a lot of footage on it with the A7S Mark II and now the FX3, and I don't think I'll be getting rid of this lens anytime soon because it is just great to have a backup lens if you need it, and it is super light, it's very capable. I've shot weddings with this lens, I've shot ads with this lens, I shot a documentary with this lens, shot a short film with this lens. So yeah, long story short, this lens is probably for the beginner who doesn't have a massive budget and wants to just create a camera kit that is incredibly versatile. I highly recommend picking up this lens. Used probably because, you know, it's half the cost of buying one new. So I'll probably pick one up used for about 180, 200 bucks. Maybe you can get one at a better deal than that. I bought mine off of eBay, didn't have any scratches or mold or fungus or anything on it, and it functions perfectly. So, and at f3.5, you're getting still somewhat of a shallow image. It's still not f4. It's a great lens. It is pretty awesome. I will be using my Tamron 28-75 G2 from now on for the majority of my shoots, specifically because you get that 2.8 consistently throughout the zoom range, which is really important for me, because when you zoom in on the 28-70, the Sony lens, you do get a pretty major shift in your aperture, especially if you're doing documentary work. You want to zoom in on your subject while you're still recording, you will get that aperture change and it will darken up your image, which can screw with your exposure quite a bit. Anyways, that's pretty much all I gotta say about this lens, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Comment if you think there is a better option out there for beginners to pick up a budget zoom lens, and yeah, like the video if you want to. You can subscribe to the channel, it doesn't cost you a dime. And I will see you guys in the next one. Check out some of my other videos, and I will see you again later. See ya.